you own any type of outdoor power sports equipment, such as an ATV, snowmobile, motorcycle, undoubtedly it has a battery. Let's face it, a battery makes starting a lot easier than using a pull cord or a Kickstarter. The only problem is that eventually the battery is going to go bad and it's going to have to be replaced. There's just no getting away from it. When the batteries get old, they have to be replaced. Your typical power sports battery has either a cage terminal like this one or a lug style terminal like this one. The cage style terminal gives you the option of connecting your battery cable to the top or to the front side. The lug style terminal only gives you the option of connecting to the front side. Doesn't matter which style terminal you have on your battery, it requires a screw or a bolt like this and a very special nut. This nut is pretty much square or rectangular in configuration, and it has to be that particular shape so it can fit inside the cage on the cage terminal or behind the lug on the lug terminal. This all sounds fairly simple until you actually get into the project and you realize that the battery typically drops down into a well or some type of compartment, and underneath that there's a whole bunch of motor, transmission, and everything else. And what typically happens is, because you have to tilt that battery to get into place and everything else, before you can connect the cables, which are usually too short to begin with, you lose a nut. Bingo, it's gone, and you can't find it. On top of that, you go to put the screw in, it slips off the end of the screwdriver, bingo, that's gone too. Now you're left with a difficult situation, because not only do you have a missing screw and a missing nut, but the typical hex nut will not replace the nut because it will not fit inside the cage on the cage terminal. The solution to this is TechTeam's number 916 replacement battery nut and bolt set. The set comes with 6 washers, 6 screws with a hex head, which also can accommodate a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and 6 of the correct, very special nuts. Just like the original equipment nuts, which measure 8 millimeters by 10.8 to 11 millimeters, the TechTeam replacement nuts measure 10.8 millimeters by 8 millimeters, so they'll make an absolutely perfect fit. Now, I can almost guarantee you that when you go to replace your battery and you put the little square nut right here in the cage like that, and then you go to put your battery into the battery case inside the ATV, motorcycle, whatever you have, and you just move it just a little bit, whoops, the nut's going to fall out. Now, you can fool around with this for an hour or two trying to get it to set in there just right and then get the screw to make up to it, but there's a hack that's going to make this job a lot easier. What you need is some flexible vinyl tubing or something similar, and what we did here is we cut a piece off and then we cut it down, and we ended up with a piece that was about the third of diameter. And this happens to be 3/8 inch ID tubing. If you happen to have 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, something smaller, you just might be able to use the tubing without having to cut it down. The key point is that you need something that's going to be both flexible and resilient, so we can hold that nut in place while we fiddle around with the battery and get it set where we need to have it set. Okay, now watch carefully. First thing we do is we take our little piece of vinyl here and we put it in, and we happen to have the curved side facing up, and then we take our little nut and we put it right on top of it, and we just push it right in, just like that, so that we get the hole in the nut lined up with the hole in the cage. Now what we do is, you take a look here, we've got that the threaded hole in the nut lined up with the hole in the cage. We take our screw and we screw it in here a few turns, just hand tight, not too tight, just like that. Now everything is held in place and it's held in its proper alignment. Now, when we take our battery and we have to fill it around to get it into wherever we have to put it, nothing's going to fall out on us. Okay, now we have a battery in place. It's down into the battery box or whatever it is in the ATV or snowmobile where it has to go. Everything is in place. Everything's lined up perfectly. And now we can remove the screw and put the lug eye end of the cable over this. Put the screw through the eye in the end of the cable. And just turn it a few turns. Now, I'm going to show you something really neat. You may have noticed that we made this about 2 inches long, which of course is much longer than we really need. But now we have everything in place, the cable's on, the screws threaded, we know we're not going to lose the nut. Bingo. We just pull this out, tighten this guy up with our cable in place, and we're good to go.